High Noon Stream. I'm Pugs Moran. We do this every Monday through Friday at noon, right here on RadioMisfits.com. Radio Misfits. For all your podcast needs, I would suggest that we should all go check that out. Let's see here. A lot going on today. Look, sometimes I have these very elaborate stories as to why we're a few minutes late. And other days, it's just because I'm slow moving. And today I am slow moving because I'm watching like 3 different major stories develop, and we'll get to all of those today because that's what we do on the High Noon Show. We talk about all the things that are buzzing about. If it's a headline, if it's a hot topic, if it's a trend, if it's something that, people are just, buzzing about out in the wild, I will cover it here for you. The show is designed to give you a nice little cheat sheet on the day so that no one can ever be like, you ever hear about? And you can be like, yeah, in fact, I did. Heard about that on High Noon with me, Pugs Moran, every Monday through Friday at noon. We also do a second stream. We call the second stream Pugs and Parker, and that one comes on at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Monday through Thursday, though. Monday through Thursday at 9 p.m. And that's more conversational. It's also current events driven and topic driven and that sort of thing. But that's more of a conversation between me and James Parker. All right, let's get started here. Hi, Jen. Good morning. Let's see. Chat room is awful quiet here in the early stages. Always is. Always is. It's like the show doesn't really get going until, I don't know, I'd say around 12:30. That's when we start to see the peak people. Yeah, so whatever. You miss the beginning, you miss a lot. Hey, Dustin. Dustin's here hanging out. All right, so here's how the show works. The show is designed to give you a full 30,000-foot view of what this particular date is. Now, we start this off by giving you the history of the day, things that happened on this day. Sometimes I miss things. Sometimes you're like, why didn't he talk about? Because look, maybe I need these. I mentioned the things that I think I have something to say about, right? It's like, or if it's just a really big thing, that needs to be mentioned. But I do, we skip over something. So we do the history of the day and then we move into the births. We talk about people who were born on this day and the contributions that they may have made. And then we mourn some of the passings. So after we've gone through the history of the day, the people born on this day, and then the passings on this day, then I feel that we can in good conscience move forward and explore what is actually happening on this particular day on this year. So let's do that. It is high noon for the 5th day of January, year of our Lord, 2023. January 5th is what class? What class? The 5th day of the year is correct. 5th day of the year. That means there are how many days remaining until the end of the year? 300. Very good, Leslie. 360 days remaining until the end of the year. On this day in 1781, we're going all the way back. On this day in 1781, during the American Revolution, Richmond, Virginia is burned by the British naval forces led by anybody? Benedict Arnold. That's right, Benedict Arnold. After he basically, what did Benedict Arnold do? Well, Benedict Arnold was pissed because he wasn't getting paid. Benedict Arnold had been a very good general, one of Washington's most trusted generals, and somebody that was, quite frankly, a good general. The hero of, is it Ticonderoga? Yeah, the hero of Ticonderoga. I mean, that was his legacy, and he was a general, and none of the generals were getting paid. And Benedict Arnold, in his personal life, he had, some high dollar tastes, and he didn't like that he wasn't able to keep up with society circles because he hadn't been paid in 2 years since this damn revolution. And, he got pissed. So he was a traitor. He absolutely betrayed his country, and he went, I think it was over West Point, right? Didn't he give up West Point, or wasn't that the deal that Benedict Arnold, West Point, which is now our military academy, West Point sits high above a ridge in the Hudson River and is strategically was a very important part to hold during the Revolution. And I think that's what it was. I think Benedict Arnold tried to give up West Point. And then he walked across the street. No non-compete. He just walked across the street, joined the British military, and then on this day in 1781, he leveled Richmond, Virginia, wearing British colors. Fun fact about Benedict Arnold: after the war, he returned to London, where he lived out the rest of his life, and he was kind of a pariah. He was like a social outcast. He was miserable his whole time in London. Let's see. On this day in 1895, here's an interesting one, another interesting one from history. A term you may have heard, but maybe aren't familiar with exactly what it is about. The Dreyfus Affair occurred on this day in 1895. Now, the Dreyfus Affair, now this is interesting to me, and I only recently discovered the details of the Dreyfus Affair. The Dreyfus Affair, French Army officer Alfred Dreyfus is stripped of his rank and sentenced to life imprisonment on Devil's Island. Why was Alfred Dreyfus convicted and stripped of his rank and sent to Devil's Island? Because he was apparently caught or was accused of passing secrets to the Germans. He was a traitor. This was a treasonous case. Alfred Dreyfus was also a high-ranking Jewish officer in the French military. And this was at a time in France where there was great anti-Semitism. There was all kinds of it wasn't a good, well, I don't know what era was a good time for the Jews. I don't 1940s Hollywood, maybe. But other than, 1940s, 1960s Hollywood, I don't know, whatever. But, as we all know, life in whatever era has always been consistently pretty rough on the Jews. And in this particular time in France, it was. And so he was accused of being a traitor. Now, the belief is that he was set up because the other French officers they were anti-Semites. They didn't like having a Jew among them, of their rank. It was determined that one of those other French officers was actually the one passing secrets to the Germans, and he was put on trial, but he was put on trial in front of the other French officers, so they acquitted him in like an hour. They were just like, yeah, this all looks pretty good, but we like you, so you can go. And during that little trial, that little mock trial, they just laid more made up crazy charges on Alfred Dreyfus, who was, sitting there at Devil's Island going, man, I can't catch a break. So they bring Alfred Dreyfus back to Paris and they put him on trial again. And at this point, the public is outraged because, normal, decent France has been following this story. And they're like, this guy didn't do anything. And we just watched the courts totally acquit a guy who looked guilty as sin. And now they're trying to blame more on the guy who we don't think did anything. So anyway, that is, he was convicted. Listen to this. This is how weird things were back then. He was convicted in the trial of the additional charges and sentenced to like another decade at Devil's Island, which is weird because he was already there for life. But they had to lay off these charges. They couldn't lay off these charges on the guy that was actually in charge of the military because, that was the old boys club, French style, if you will. So they levied these new charges on him, and he was convicted of these charges. But then after he was convicted of the charges, and when I say after, I mean like within 30 minutes, they acquitted him of all the other charges, and he went for, it was such a weird thing. Anyway, because of the public outcry, and because this was so obviously a fixed trial and nonsense, because of that, he was reinstated, and he went on to have a career as a very successful French officer again after his time serving for treason in Devil's Island, because it was determined that was all BS. Anyway, why is this interesting to us here in 2023? Because Alfred Dreyfus was the great-great-uncle of Julia Louis-Dreyfus. That's right. Thank you. That was a long way to go. It's a long way to go, but we got there. Yes, Alfred Dreyfus was from the French banking family, the Dreyfuses, which still to this day is. This is why Julia Louis-Dreyfus is like the wealthiest person in Hollywood, or at least the wealthiest actress. All that money that she has made from her wildly successful career, whether it's Seinfeld or owning Veep, and then how successful Veep was, or any of the other things she's probably in the hundreds of millions on that. But no. Her parents, her dad was like Louis Dreyfus, or her grandpa was Louis Dreyfus, who started the Dreyfus Fund. So even if she never made any of that money, from acting and all that stuff, she's already like a multi-billionaire because her family is. Anyway, I love her. She is a national treasure. She's one of the good ones. And by that, I mean 1%ers. On this day in 1914, the Ford Motor Company announced an 8-hour work day and a minimum daily wage of $5 in salary and bonuses. Henry Ford, look at that. That was pretty good. He didn't have to do that stuff. Henry Ford did a lot of really great things. Henry Ford. And what do we always say on this show? People are complicated. And sometimes you got to separate the art from the artist. Because in addition to being an amazing American innovator a guy who changed the way American manufacturing is done forever and, brought quality, affordable cars to the driveways of every family in America. Henry Ford, also prodigious Jew hater. Oh, he was the biggest anti-Semite. People are complicated, right? So when we talk about Henry Ford and we talk about him as this, great revered, but we also got to remember he was kind of a piece of shit. He was, around the dinner table, he was a piece of shit. He was really good at making people work on an assembly line and thinking that, the people who work for him, I guess the non-Jew workers who worked for him. And by the way, it should also be noted, he hired black people at a time when they didn't hire black people. So he didn't have a problem with black people, just the Jews. Henry Ford wrote a book called The Jew or something like, it was a business manual on how to do business with Jews. Henry Ford wrote this book and people are like, Henry Ford knows what he's talking about. So, people are complicated. Just always keep that in mind when you just that guy's a monster or that guy. Look, hey, people are complicated. What do they say? Hitler had a dog who loved him. Let's see here. On this day, hey, look at this. Speaking of, man, there's been a lot of anti-Semitism on this day. On this day in 1919, the German Workers' Party is founded. The German Workers' Party would eventually rebrand themselves as the Nazi Party. Born on this day in 1919. Born on this day in 1949, in his State of the Union address, United States President Harry S. Truman unveils his Fair Deal program. Yeah, nobody really cared about the Fair Deal. And, the Fair Deal was basically, as I recall, that wasn't around. The Fair Deal was basically just sort of emboldening Roosevelt's New Deal with a whole bunch of other things, a bunch of concessions on other issues, because at this point, Truman was dealing with a Republican Congress, so he had to make concessions. Anyway, almost nothing from the Fair Deal happened. Notably from the Fair Deal, this was the first time that there was actually a president saying, let's have universal health care for all Americans, going all the way back to this day in 1949. Truman's going, look, if we're going to be a great country, we got to make sure we're a healthy country first. So let's invest in the health and well-being of our people. And then, but at that time, there were a bunch of people taking money, smoking big fancy cigars from the insurance company people. Yeah, well, whatever. Everybody else is doing it, but somehow we can't figure out a way to do it. What happened to that good old-fashioned American know-how? Stop carrying water for the insurance companies, people. That's all I'm saying. In his 1957, in a speech given to the United States Congress, United States President Dwight D. Eisenhower announces the establishment of what will later be called the Eisenhower Doctrine. What was that? Wasn't that, that was just all about the Middle East and keeping the Soviets out of the Middle East. Yeah, that was, there you go. Okay, so on this day, the Eisenhower Doctrine. On this day, by the way, some aspects of the Eisenhower Doctrine are blamed for why we have these continued problems in the Middle East. But, it was, at the time, I think it was done in good faith. On this day in 1972, U.S. President Richard Nixon announced the Space Shuttle program, which at the time, everybody was like, yay! And now we're like, that's the thing that ruined NASA. Nobody was interested in watching a pickup truck ferry equipment back and forth to a space station. It didn't galvanize the nation like the moon landing did, and we lost interest. And when you lose interest, congressmen stop funding projects, and now we don't even have rockets, or maybe we got rockets again. I don't know, whatever. Let's do some birthdays. Let's celebrate some birthdays. Born on this day in 1914, into this world, George Reeves. George Reeves was the first Superman on TV. He's a very controversial figure. Well, he's not controversial. His passing is controversial. He died in 1959. The official was that he shot himself in the head, was suicide. But that's probably not what happened. Seems like his lady killed him in the middle of a party. He went upstairs. She went up. They heard a gunshot. These people were downstairs at the house, 1:30 in the morning at this party at the Reeves house. He goes upstairs. She goes up. Lenore Lemon was her name. She goes upstairs after him. the people at the party, they hear a gunshot. And then a lot of people at the party now, years later, have said that she came down and said, whatever happens, tell them I was down here when the gunshot went off. So look, I don't think George Reeves killed himself. But anyway, it's very interesting story. One of the great Hollywood conspiracy theories, I suppose, or whatever. I don't know. For whatever reason, it was reported as a suicide, although everybody's like, it wasn't a suicide. He didn't kill himself. You can look into it. Ben Affleck played him in a movie, Hollywoodland, from 20 years ago or something. If you ever saw Hollywoodland, that story of George Reeves. Anyway, and the investigation. It's very good. Born on this day in 1917, the first Mrs. Nancy, or the first Nancy, I should say, Jane Wyman. Yeah, she was an actress. She was married to Ronald Reagan. What else do we got here? Who else was born on this day? Oh, hey, here's a good one. Here we go. Born on this day in 1923, Virginia Hallis McCaskey. That's right, Mama Bear. Mama Bear. Oh, my God. 100 years old. This is so complicated for me as a Chicago Bear fan. Virginia Hallis McCaskey, of course, the daughter of NFL co-founder George Hallis. Virginia, Mama Bear, the queen of the NFL, first lady of the NFL, whatever you want to call her, is 100 years old today. 100 years old. You still see her up there in her wheelchair with her, she don't care. She's literally wearing a bear skin. She's up there in her big fur coat. She's got a rosary wrapped around her head. She's very Catholic. She's a very Catholic old lady. Anyway, she's the owner of our team. Now, and we love her, and we do. The people that look, the Chicago Bear fans, we have a lot of issues with management. We don't like the way her kids have been running it, but her as the chairman, we love her. We love her. She's an icon. She may as well be a statue, right? She's Virginia Hallis. She's 100 years old today. But here's the problem. Her kids are a-holes. Her kids are little D-bags. Her kids only make money off the team. It's not like other ownership groups where they make their money elsewhere in oil or tech or whatever, and then they come buy a team and the team is their toy. No, the Hallises, this is their business. Football is their business. And these kids are just all about protecting the legacy. So the kids have or bottom line also is probably the most important thing that they're all about. Virginia's about protecting the legacy of her father and all that kind of stuff. So, we love Virginia, and she's 100, but we also know, looking at this realistically, that when she dies, her little money-grabbing kids are going to sell the team for billions of dollars. When the Chicago Bears go up for sale, she's 100 years old today, so how long is this, right? How long from now? So as soon as she passes, because Chicago Bears will never be sold while George Hallis's daughter is the chairman. But her kids want to be billionaires, so we're kind of in a tough spot as people who really love the birthday girl, Virginia Hallis McCaskey, because we know that when she dies, things will get better for us. Things will get better. We'll get some crazy tech billionaire in here. We'll get Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos will buy the Bears. Maybe Mark Cuban. Who knows? It doesn't matter. But we'll have somebody who will finally treat our team like a toy instead of like something that they need to make money off every year, or they got to sell the summer home. You know what I mean? Ugh. So happy birthday to you, Virginia Hallis McCaskey. Born on this day in 1923. Also born on this day in 1923, Sam Phillips. Sam Phillips, founder of Sun Records. He signed Elvis Presley. He signed everybody. Sam Phillips. There are plenty of documentaries and stories about the life of Sam Phillips. He's a fascinating individual. Rock and roll pioneer, to be sure. Born on this day in 1928, Walter Mondale, humiliated in a presidential election. I think he's the last guy to lose did he win one state? Did he win Minnesota, his own state? Anyway, vice president. He was vice president under Carter, ran against Reagan, and just got his ass handed to him. Born on this day in 1931, Robert Duvall. Got to take a deep breath on this one. Let me tell you something. Do you think I'd let Robert Duvall's birthday go by without a Robert Duvall draft? Oh my God. You guys, I did this Robert Duvall draft this morning. It took me like 45 minutes. It took me 45 minutes and I quit twice. I quit. This is the first time that I have been beaten back by trying to establish a draft of someone. Robert Duvall, who was born on this day in 1931, has a filmography that, at least to my taste, is unbelievable. This was the most, I think I said this with Dustin Hoffman. this is bigger. This is bigger. This Robert Duvall draft is the most difficult draft that I've ever had to do, but let's give it a try. Here we go with the first pick in the Robert Duvall draft. We are drafting all the great performances that Robert Duvall has been a part of, right? Number 1 off the board. And honestly, although 2 through 5 were as difficult as they've ever been for me to pick to drafts, number 1 was a no-brainer. Number 1 was when I heard it was his birthday, I said to myself, well, I know what the number 1 pick in his draft is going to be. And that is, of course, Lieutenant Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. And I just so happen to be rewatching Apocalypse Now in little 20-minute increments every night. Come on. I mean, if you can point to a war movie that has a more memorable soundbite than I love the smell of napalm in the morning, you are out of your mind. You are out of your mind. Apocalypse Now, the surfing helicopter cavalry lieutenant. Crazy Bill Kilgore, out of his mind. All he wanted to do was surf. Number two is, this was another, you got to mention this one. Number 2, Godfathers 1 and 2. Tom Hagen. That's right. The consigliere, the adopted son. Couldn't be a made man because he was half Irish. Tom Hagen. Number 3 in the Robert Duvall draft. I'm going Great Santini. I'm going Great Santini from 1979. Drill sergeant. What it's like growing up with a drill sergeant father. Remember the scene with the basketball when he was pushing the basketball in the kid's face? Oh, the Great Santini. Number 4, and there's a lot of people going, how is this not top 3? Well, it's number 4, and a very early Robert Duvall role, a role that made people go, oh, he's real, and that's of course Boo Radley in To Kill a Mockingbird, 1962. Boo Radley. We are doing the Robert Duvall draft on his birthday. Number 5 was hard, man. Number 5 was hard, especially when I start to rattle off the undrafted free agents who are being brought into camp. Number 5 was, it's like, where do I go with number 5? I came down on the side of Uncle Bob Hodges from Colors, 1988. Uncle Bob and Sean Penn driving around South Central. Robert Duvall played the grizzled old veteran of the streets. I had to go with Colors. All right, so the official draft, number 1, Bill Kilgore from Apocalypse Now. Number 2, Tom Hagen from The Godfathers 1 and 2. 3, The Great Santini. 4, Boo Radley from To Kill a Mockingbird. 5, Uncle Bob. That's right, Bob Hodges from Colors. But man, you damn right we are bringing people into camp. We are bringing Oscar winners into camp undrafted. That's how deep the Robert Duvall draft goes. Here we go. True Grit is coming to camp. MASH is coming. Do people remember that in the movie MASH, which is Robert Altman's incredible film that the TV show was a spinoff of the movie. I don't know if people know that. He played Frank Burns. Robert Duvall is the original Frank Burns. We'll go The Conversation. That's going to get a camp invite. The Eagle Has Landed, Network, Tender Mercies, The Natural, Let's Get Harry, Ramblin' Rose, Falling Down, The Paper, Days of Thunder, Sling Blade, The Apostle, Deep Impact, A Civil Action, Gone in 60 Seconds, Gods and Generals, Crazy Heart, Jack Reacher, The Judge, and for his 1963 performance in the Twilight Zone episode, The Miniature. That's right. He was in the Twilight Zone, and it's an awesome Twilight Zone episode. His 1979 made-for-TV miniseries portrayal of Eisenhower in the NBC series Ike is also getting a camp invite. Guys, I left shit on the floor here. It's just unbelievable. Robert Duvall. Good Lord. Good Lord, that dude has had a career. Born on this day in 1932, Chuck Noll. What have you done, Chuck Noll? I won 4 Super Bowls. Yeah, tell that to Robert Duvall. Born on this day in 1934, Phil Ramone, South African-American songwriter, singer, producer, very famous producer. What have you done, Phil Ramone? Well, I produced for everybody from Duke Ellington to Satchmo to Frank Sinatra to Billy Joel. Yeah, tell that to Robert Duvall. Born on this day in 1942. Charlie Rose. Charlie Rose. Remember Charlie Rose? Oh, we respected Charlie Rose, didn't we? Ooh, Charlie Rose used to do that show that we'd all watch half drunk in the middle of the night because it's like, I've done nothing and I've been out drinking all night, but now I'm going to watch something that's going to make me feel like I'm a smart person. So you watch that Charlie Rose show where it's just him in like a dark closet with like a mahogany round table. And he was always talking to somebody interesting, but he presented himself as just, the apex of sophistication, decency, journalistic integrity, all that stuff. Yeah, guess what he would do? He would invite interns, females, up to his hotel suites when on the road, and he would just walk around naked with old Charlie Rose, little Charlie, little Chuckles, just dangling. He was a sex creep. Born on this day in 1946, Diane Keaton. Diane Keaton draft! Oh, I can't do it. Diane Keaton draft. She was Annie Hall. That's it. End of draft. End of draft. Nobody else gets drafted. Diane Keaton is Annie Hall. Probably the greatest female role ever created. The most interesting character, I would say, of a female ever made. Annie Hall. That's right, Diane Keaton. Born on this day in 1948. Yeah, we got more. We're only in the 40s, folks. Born on this day in 1948, Ted Lang. Isaac, your bartender. Hey, that's it. Born on this day in 1969, Marilyn Manson. Marilyn Manson. The beautiful people, the beautiful people. Banana. The beautiful people, the beautiful people. I love Marilyn Manson's music. I'm not crazy about him. He seems a little bit, don't want to hang out with him. You know what I mean? I don't want to hang out with him. I don't want to sit on a couch with him. I don't want to make small talk with him. But his music, woohoo! I love his music. Let's see here. Who else? Born on this day in 1975, celebrating a birthday, Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper draft! All right, we'll do a quick Bradley Cooper draft because he is at a point in his career where he does deserve some recognition. Number 1 overall, the Bradley Cooper draft. We're going Silver Linings Playbook. That's right. Probably quickly closing in on Dr. Strangelove as my favorite movie of all time. I found myself having to watch Silver Linings Playbook once every couple of months. Even if it's not the whole thing, I'll just put it on because I need to get into that headspace. God, it's a great movie. If you've not seen Silver Linings Playbook, I highly recommend it. Number 2, American Hustle. Oh, he was so good in American Hustle. Number 3, Licorice Pizza as Peter... he played Barbra Streisand's boyfriend, a real guy, Peter whatever. He played him so over the top, it was hysterical. Licorice Pizza comes off the board. Star is Born, number 4 pick. Bradley Cooper draft. Star is Born. Shut up. Oh, shut up. I know when it came out, all the cool kids decided that we were going to bag on A Star is Born. Well, guess what? We're a couple of years removed, and I've seen that movie like twice. I love that movie. I'm going to watch it again. And if you're telling me that you didn't just dissolve when you saw what happens to Bradley Cooper in A Star is Born, then you are a dead person. You are already dead. Just forget about it. You're deader than he is. Bradley Cooper, A Star is Born, number 4 off the board. Number 5, American Sniper. Woo! But we are also going to invite some undrafted free agents into the Bradley Cooper camp. By the way, the draft, Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, Licorice Pizza, A Star is Born, American Sniper. Here are the undrafted free agents getting camp invites. Limitless. I like that movie. That's a good movie. The Hangovers. Love Bradley Cooper and The Hangovers. They're getting camp invites. Guardians of the Galaxy. I know it's just his voice as Rocket Rat or whatever. What the raccoon? Rocket Raccoon. I know it's only his voice. It's a great performance. I love that character. The Guardians of the Galaxy is coming into camp. Also, he did a movie called Aloha that I don't know a lot of people saw because I don't think it was very well received. But for some reason, I enjoy the film Aloha. So, I don't know. If you want to get to know me and what makes me check out Aloha. Actually, Silver Linings Playbook, if you really want to kind of figure out what my groove is. Also coming to camp, Burnt. Did you see Burnt, where he plays like the crazed chef? I got to be honest, I only saw half of it, but I keep intending to watch the rest of it. So it's coming to camp. I need a closer look. I need to see more of that. And he was kind of funny as the producer, because cool, right? The producer and the Joker, right? Remember that? Good role. All right, camp invite. There you go. That's the Bradley Cooper draft. Done 2 drafts. Very, very rare for us to do 2 drafts. Born on this day in 1978, January Jones. She's a beautiful woman, but she always strikes me as sexually disinterested. January Jones from Mad Men. Beautiful woman, but there are a lot of beautiful women who, when they're on screen, their sexuality pops. There's something, there's that thing about January Jones just seems very flat. It's like, January Jones, look at her. Is she beautiful? Oh, she's a 10. She is gorgeous. And then you look at her more and you're like, is she real? Like, does she have emotion? Anyway, happy birthday, January Jones. I just think you seem very sexually vanilla. I don't know. You know what? Let's go with that. Sexually vanilla. Born on this day in 1981, somebody who's extremely famous, but because I'm an old man, I have no idea who Deadmau 5 is. Happy birthday, Deadmau 5. He's a DJ. I know he's like a music DJ, Skrillex. He talked about Skrillex the other day. Isn't he like that? Isn't he like wouldn't they be in the same section of the record store that doesn't exist anymore? I don't know. I don't care. All sounds like noise to me. Yep. Deaths. Some people died. Calvin Coolidge, a president, he died on this day. Very sad. Bye-bye, President Coolidge. Died on this day in 1933. Dead on this day in 1943, George Washington Carver. He's the peanut guy, right? Isn't he he's the guy all right, we can only teach him about one black guy. Who's it going to be? How about the guy who invented peanuts? I don't think anybody invented peanuts. Yeah, a black guy did. All right. So now I walk around thinking a black guy invented peanuts, even though we know intellectually peanuts were not invented, but whatever. That's George Washington Carver, great American. We were just never really taught about him. I mean, he was mentioned, and then it was like, oh yeah, peanut butter. You know what? I think in like third grade, I think we made peanut butter out of peanuts. And I think it was a part of learning about him. But we all got distracted by smashing up peanut. We weren't really thinking. Dead on this day in 1994, Tip O'Neill. Thomas Tip O'Neill, American lawyer, politician, the 55th Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. Tip O'Neill, Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan. That's something that we ought to be looking to today. Tip O'Neill and Tip O'Neill, a Democrat from Massachusetts. Ronald Reagan, a Republican, new flag bearer of a new day in America, right? And the conservative values and all that kind of stuff. He and Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan were like best friends. They were like buddies. Ronald Reagan said Tip O'Neill was the only person in Washington that he trusted. Now, these are two guys from polar opposites of the political ideological spectrum, but yet here they are. They can put all that aside and go, yeah, but you know what? He's kind of a good dude and I enjoy hanging out with him. And they both felt that way about each other. That was the last time when, there were wars. Those of us old enough to remember. I mean, it wasn't like, Tip O'Neill just rolled over. No, there were wars. But they could go out and have a beer and have a steak together. Or Tip O'Neill could go over and have dinner in the West Wing or the residences or whatever it is. I don't know. It was just, and if you were alive back then, you found that interesting because you thought that they were mortal enemies. And I guess they were ideologically and as far as politically speaking, but they could put that aside and work together and compromise. That's what we're missing today. That is complete. We are missing that today because I believe of the instantaneous reaction that social media gives. If somebody like you're perceived as being weak for compromise. You're perceived as being weak for not getting 100% of what you want 100% of the time. That's madness. That's not, you know what that is? That's a dictatorship. The person who wants 100% of what they want 100% of the time is a dictator. That's not a democracy. So, I mean, look, you got to give some, you got to take some, and you hope that the happy medium is enough to get us through to the next national tragedy, right? Because that's what this is about. We have to come together. And what we are seeing today is just a representation of how we are not back together. We are nowhere near fixing this situation. All right. That's enough. But dead on this day in 1998, this should be mentioned too, Sonny Bono. Sonny Bono died. He was a congressman at the time. Sonny Bono, we all grew up watching him on variety shows in the 70s, Sonny and Cher. And then he steps away from entertainment. And he becomes the mayor of Palm Springs. Then he becomes a congressman. And I don't know. Who knows how high Sonny Bono could have gone in the halls of, Washington, D.C. But he was sledding. And he What did he do? He hit a tree, something like that. Anyway, terrible. Sonny Bono died very young. Let's get into what is trending. Do we feel? Hold on, let me get this back on. Excuse me. All right. What is happening here? Hold on, I'm just checking in on the... Good time for a water break. Oh, shut up, Frank. Frank Smith, Tip O'Neill, last good Democratic speaker. You wouldn't know a good speaker for a bit in the ass, and that's being displayed right now on TV. All right. Keep that partisan politics out of here, Frank. Thank you, sir. Only I get to dance on the razor's edge of partisan politics. Only I, because it's my stream. But we try not to do that here. Okay, let's jump into what's happening, right? Let's talk about what's trending, what the big stories of the day is. California is getting their ass kicked by a storm, and it's going to get worse. Northern California, they've been getting storms for the last couple of days, but the big one is coming through right now, I believe, and then there's going to be a pause for like 20 hours, and then an even bigger one that is more of a winter storm is going to descend Friday night on Northern California. Now they're going to get, so they got all this rain and all this stuff, and then the cold's coming in, so all of that is going to freeze. There's going to be ice everywhere, and then snow is going to come through on top of that. So California is in pretty look, if we didn't have all of this nonsense going on in Washington, D.C., trust me when I tell you the California storms would be the big story of the day because it's wreaking havoc, and you should keep an eye on it. All right. Biden, border security. He came out this morning. He's trending right now. He's like, border security is important. Okay. And he's going to go to the border. People have been like, you got to go to the border. And he's like, what? Huh? And so now he's going to go to the border. He's going to go down there with McConnell. McConnell and Biden are trying to project some bipartisanship. And he even said today, as you can see, we've got an example of us working together. That side is working out fine. And I guess they're trying to counterbalance what's happening over in the House, which is absolute nonsense. Actually, let's be honest. It's not a war between Democrats and Republicans going on in the House. This is a war between Republicans. This is the Republican Civil War that is playing out right now. Hey, look, the Democrats are sitting there. They're all voting one way. They're like, oh, let's vote for Hakeem Jeffries again. All right, everybody votes for Hakeem Jeffries again. It's the Republicans who have the majority who can get to the number 218, but they can't seem to figure out how to do it. So anyway, there you go. We'll talk about that. Well, next, why not? Fecal Fest. What's going on there in... Oh, here's something that was interesting today. I was like, oh, we can make this a thing. So some dude, some rep, I think he's a Michigan rep. He opened it up. I think was he the guy? He may have been the guy who put Kevin McCarthy's name into nomination. In fact, he was. So the guy who put Kevin McCarthy's name into nomination during the lead up to the 8th vote now or 7th vote. I don't know, whatever it was, the one that started this morning. I'm losing track. He's a young black Republican from Michigan. And he got up and he gave a great speech. I thought, man, his speech was awesome. It really was. I was like, man, I like this guy. I've never heard of this guy before. Representative John James. I like this guy. But then he said something and I went, oh, that's... He said, and look, remember, he's a black Republican, and he used an ethnic slur in his speech, and I'm like, I don't know if anybody caught it or not, but as soon as he said it, I went, oh, well, there you go. Anybody want to take some gotcha shots? Now's your opportunity. I mean, it would be incredibly stupid because I think he used it innocently, but what he said was, he was talking about how the United States Congress, when everybody's running, they all make these promises. They make these bets with the people that they're, these wagers that, if you deliver for me, I'll deliver for you. And he wrapped it up by saying, and we're welching on that bet, which, isn't as bad as saying, some other ones, but that's an ethnic slur. That's look, I'm struggling for anything to talk about that isn't the nonsense that we're all seeing. I'm so tired of it. They keep voting and it turns out the same way, and then they adjourn for like 8 hours, and then they come back and we're all waiting to see what the next vote is going to be, and then they decide to adjourn. The first vote of that that they do is to whether or not to quit for the night, and they did that yesterday. So they re-adjourned today at noon Eastern time. And then they just did the exact same thing. I am just looking for, he said an ethnic slur. Let's get that trending. You can't say welching on a bet. It's a slur that the English used to put on the Welsh people. It's comes from horse racing in England, when if you were not paying back on a bet, you were basically being a Welshman. You were being like because Welshmen were pieces of shit in the eyes of the English, right? So that's a slur. You can't slur. Well, I guess is there a Welsh lobby in America that can be outraged that he used that ethnic slur? Is it ethnic? It's not racial. It's cultural slur. I don't know, whatever. Guys, I can't talk about the speaker thing anymore. I am desperately looking for something. I just, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. If you want breakdowns of it, look, I am certain that there are plenty of other places. So we're going to move on. The Fecal Fest will not be covered here anymore today, unless, of course, something big happens. Frank Smith says he's 3% Welsh. All right. What else do we have? What's happening? Okay, let's spend a little bit of time on this one because I'm fascinated by what's happening here. And as a matter of fact, I would much rather be in the other room studying the recently released information concerning Brian Kohlberger, Brian Kohlberger. I don't even care. I don't care enough about this piece of human garbage to get his name right. But he appeared in court this morning in Idaho, and as soon as he did his little thing in front of the judge, they released a whole bunch of evidence. Now, I haven't seen it all because honestly, it just came out. But here are some of the things that we learned. Remember, all we know is that after like a month, more than a month, really, a month plus of absolute radio silence from all the authorities on what was happening, all of a sudden they arrest some guy in Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. Rural Pennsylvania. They arrested nothing. We know nothing. They know nothing. There are no details. There is no information. What are they doing? Criticizing the police. My God, this is way outside of what the Moscow Police Department can handle. All kinds of nonsense. And all that time, these MFers were building a case against one son of a bitch. They knew who it was. And now we are starting to see evidence that they knew who it was very early on. They had a suspect. And we were going to talk about this a little bit tonight on Pugs and Parker. This effect, this genius effect, that people are labeling this Brian Kohlberger as like a murderous genius. And I have a theory that he's actually a moron. And that theory is being bolstered by all of the information that has been released within the last couple of hours concerning this guy. What we were waiting to hear about. Remember, it was just this terrible event happened. No information. Arrest made in Pennsylvania. What? There's a lot of information in between there that we were not privy to. But it looks like anybody who was criticizing the police, and what do I know, right? I'm just like, it seems like I was being selfish. I wanted the information, right? I was curious, and I was trying to satiate my own prurient needs for gore information concerning this case. Because I really have been following this very closely. It is fascinating. The first thing that we found out about was the car. So that was fairly early on. Here's the thing that needs to be remembered about the car. It was also dismissed fairly early on by a lot of people. The white Elantra, the car that was seen on the gas station security cam whizzing down the road, the otherwise barren and empty road. Nobody was out. Small town, 4:00 in the morning, middle of Utah. We saw the one car around the time of the murders, or that they thought the murders had occurred. We saw the one car whiz by, and we were looking for that white Elantra. Then a white Elantra turned up over the border in Washington, and we thought, we found the car. It wasn't it. So then we had all kind of moved on. Guess what? It was a white Elantra. It was the car. That is the car. It's the car that Kohlberger had. It's the car that he was. Yesterday, we start to find little pieces of information are being released. Like one of the first was the FBI admitting to Fox News that, yes, the 2 times that Brian Kohberger was pulled over in the state of Indiana by Indiana state troopers, the FBI were behind both of those pullovers. You can go and you can find the camera footage of Brian Kohberger being pulled over in his car on his way to Pennsylvania from Washington State University with his father. You can find those videos. But the FBI told the Indiana State Police to pull him over because the FBI was trying to get footage of his hands. And they knew that they could use the body camera from the police, the Indiana State Patrol officer. They could use that as evidence. They were gathering evidence. Also, it's being revealed now that it was specific the questions that were asked and recorded by the police officers who made these stops. The FBI wanted him to confirm that he was Brian Kohberger. That's why he gave him the driver's license, and he looked at it and he gave it back to him. And he wanted to confirm where they were going and where they were coming from. And both times in both videos, you see these FBI directives being enacted by the Indiana State Police. So we found that out last night. That was the first piece of information. That told us that the FBI had been on this kid for quite some time if they were tracking him cross country. So that was the first piece of nice, juicy steak that we got. Oh boy, but this morning, man, they released a whole bunch of new stuff that is absolutely mind-blowing. Like, for instance, we now know that Kohberger was a suspect because of DNA that was left at the scene. His DNA was at the scene. Where was it at the scene? It was found on a knife sheath. You know, the sheath that you put a knife in? He left it behind. He left the murder weapon, the sheath that held the knife that he used to murder. He left the sheath behind with his own DNA on it. Again, this goes to last night. I think this guy's a moron. Today we're finding out that, yes, he was a moron. He's not some genius. He's a moron. And it appears that they had him dead to rights very early on, and they just needed to watch him. And they were watching him. Okay, so DNA matched. DNA found at the scene that was on a sheath that he left behind, the sheath for the murder weapon, which also explains how they knew so specifically what the murder weapon was. They knew the kind of knife, not just that it was a hatchet versus a butcher knife. No, they knew the make, and they knew the kind of knife that was used. And now we know it's because they had the sheath. They had the sheath that the knife came with his DNA on it. They also followed him as he switched his car plates. In the days following the murder, when it was first released that there was footage of the car, Brian Kohberger then switched his license plates on his car. I think they were Pennsylvania plates. He got them switched over to being Washington plates. So that FBI was apparently watching him do that. And they went, that's kind of weird. So we're still trying. I have not seen the motive yet. So we're still trying to find the motive. But the probable cause affidavit that was unsealed this morning, here are the things that I've heard from. And by the way, when we're done here, I'm going to go jump and I'm going to read this stuff. Probable cause affidavit that the FBI and police used to put Brian Kohberger under arrest in Pennsylvania. What did they know? Why was he under arrest? DNA has been confirmed. Okay, so we know that they had his DNA. We know that the knife sheath was left at the scene. We know that, and this is the most chilling part of it. One of the survivors in the house saw him. We have been told, what were the 2 survivors doing? And how come we haven't heard anything from them? We haven't heard anything from them because they have a whole lot to say. And they needed to make sure that it was only the police and the investigators who were hearing this stuff before Inside Edition went live with the report about how the killer walked right past a frozen in fear roommate. I mean, crazy. One survivor, one of the 2 survivors, one of the 2 girls that were sleeping in the downstairs bedroom, one of them was awake during the murders. She was awakened because Zaina and Ethan, they were the couple. Zaina had ordered a food delivery, DoorDash, at 4 a.m. So we know that at 4 a.m., at least they were still alive. And when the DoorDash guy showed up at 4 a.m., the dog started going nuts. So the roommate who was sleeping in her bedroom on the first floor woke up. somebody came and got the food, went back upstairs. She heard that, and then she heard something else. So she got out of her bed and she came out, and she was standing in the hallway, and she heard what she described to police as crying and whimpering, and somebody saying to her, "Are you ready? Don't worry, I'm here to help you." At which point, she went further up the stairs, and the person came out of the room dressed in all black, wearing a black face mask. She described bushy eyebrows and beady eyes. She could see that. He walked right past her and left via a sliding glass door. Holy shit. So, this maybe kind of starts to tell us now that this was targeted. And early on, back when I was doing the mansplaining show, we were talking about this case, and I was saying very early on that there is somebody who is on the campus there who has been reported to be an incel who is stalking Kaylee Conclaves. And then that was quickly hushed away. And I think it was hushed away by police who said, do you remember I kept saying, why do the police eliminate suspects so quickly? It's because they knew. And when the story about the stalker, who was supposedly an incel and a leader of the incel community there on camp or whatever, some website, when that story came out, it was pushed down by authorities, right? Nah, there's nothing to it. Nah, there's nothing to the stalker story. Well, now some of this information says that has been released today that he was stalking her, that his cell phone was pinging. There are cell phone. That's again why we're going to talk about why I think this guy is actually an absolute moron instead of this criminal genius that everybody wants to put him up on this pedestal where, he figured out the perfect crime. No, apparently he didn't. Apparently he made a lot of really stupid mistakes. First and foremost, he made a mass murderer inside, which is something I was reading earlier today. They're like, nobody who is as advanced in criminology as this guy who was trying to plan the perfect get away with murder slaughter would do it inside. You can't do it inside because there's way too many ways to catch DNA, and you do it outside. You take a bunch of people out to the woods and you slaughter them where the elements and the animals and nature is going to naturally sort of dispose of all the evidence. Nobody would do it anyway. Holy shit. So his cell phone is pinging. It's now being revealed that he does identify as an incel. That this Brian Koberger guy is an incel who has a history of not abusing, but being socially awkward with women to the point where they felt threatened or creeped out by him. He seems to be in some way, people are saying he has Asperger's. I don't know what that really means. I hear that applied to a lot of people. I know people with Asperger's who, are totally normal. You wouldn't know, and then they surprise you. I don't know. There's so much of this story, and I cannot wait. As a matter of fact, I don't know what the hell you're doing watching the stream. You should be just buried in all of whatever is in this probable cause affidavit that was released. I still don't know the motive, although it is starting to look like possibly he had some kind of a fixation with one of them. If this is in fact, as I am theorizing right now, connected to the early reports about the incel and the stalker. They are saying he was around. Also, he's been banned from a number of bars. He has been Brian Koberger on the campus. One person theorized that the reason that he started traveling the 10 miles to drink and socialize in bars and clubs at the University of Utah when he was a student at the University of Washington State University is because of the two bars on the campus of Washington State University that had banned him, that had told him that he couldn't come back because of the way he talked to female bartenders and female waitresses and just the way he was kind of a pest and a weirdo. So they're saying, when he was banned from these two Washington State University bars where he liked to hang out, he would just get in his car and drive the 10 miles to the next big university that was right there across the border in Utah, where they are saying he may have in some way ran across Kaylee. And he may, in fact, be the person. We'll see. I don't know. We got to jump into this. All right. So that's the latest on the Brian. I don't even care about his last name. I for some reason, my brain is refusing to allow me to remember his last name, and I'm good with that. Damar Hamlin, ladies and gentlemen, Damar Hamlin is trending. Damar Hamlin has been trending since the really chilling incident on Monday Night Football. Damar Hamlin is the safety for the Buffalo Bills who made a tackle on T. Higgins, who came across the middle. Nice tackle, form tackle. Well, actually, he tackled him a little high. It was a little high, but whatever, still. Both players fell to the ground. Both players popped right back up. And then within about a second or two, Damar Hamlin collapsed on the floor in full cardiac arrest. We now know that he was resuscitated on the field. They used the little shocky pads thing to bring him back. He was rushed to University of Cincinnati Hospital, where he remained sedated since then. Well, he's awake. Damar Hamlin is awake. He is awake. And he is able to grip and squeeze the hands of his mama and his loved ones. And here, I have this from the family as distributed by the Buffalo Bills organization. Okay, so here is the report on Damar Hamlin. Per the physicians, this comes from Buffalo Bills official. Per the physicians caring for Damar Hamlin at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, Damar has shown remarkable improvement over the past 24 hours. While still critically ill, he has demonstrated that he appears to be neurologically intact. His lungs continue to heal, and he is making steady progress. We are grateful for the love and support that we have received. All right. So, the great concern. Look, the great concern isn't, will he be back for the postseason? Look, that's not the great concern. The great concern isn't even, will he be able to play football ever again? The great concern is he going to be a vegetable? Because when you have a heart attack, when you go through, you have neurological damage. The oxygen is cut off from your brain and your brain begins to die. And that's the reason why you got to get their heart going right away, as quickly as possible. It's why they don't move you if you're in cardiac arrest until they can at least attempt to get the heart going. Because the longer you are without your heart going, whether it's, you're in transport or the longer you are without somebody actively massaging and trying to get your heart growing, the more likely it is that you will be brain damaged. And so that was the concern about Damar. That this is doctors using the phrase remarkable is very interesting because doctors typically, especially in a situation like this, where the media glare of an entire country is on you, they don't tend to engage in hyperbole. So for a doctor to be saying that Damar Hamlin is showing remarkable improvement is really encouraging and should be taken as such. Also, the big news here is he appears, take that for what it's worth. He appears to be neurologically intact. You like first read, that's like, oh God, that sounds great. But what does that mean, neurologically intact? What does that mean? To what degree, right? Like, what are we talking about? Because the way it's being described is that he's able to squeeze and recognize family members in the way he's communicating. I mean, that's good. That is so good. I had a friend pass away in recent years, a very close friend of mine. Those of you who listen to my old podcast that I used to do know him as Gary. Gary was my co-host on the podcast. He ran a recording studio. He was a musician. He was a musician who made really good money when he was like 23 years old, being a part of a band that like blew up. And then he never had to work again. He just opened up a recording studio. He took that money, built a recording studio, and just did what he loved. He had a great life. And he had surgery, and he went back to the hospital after his surgery for a checkup, and he started to feel ill in the waiting room. He went to the bathroom, and he collapsed in the bathroom, and he laid there in cardiac arrest in the bathroom stall for 4 hours. They just thought somebody was in there crapping, I guess. And he suffered irreversible, complete brain damage. And I used to go and see him in his hospice. And that was the fear for Damar. That was the fear for Damar Hamlin, that he would be reduced to a violent 4-year-old. That's how I would describe my friend who had severe brain damage after not being left alone in a bathroom in a hospital while waiting for a surgical exam. Anyway, so this is all very good for Damar Hamlin. Damar Hamlin, a remarkable improvement. So let's keep a good thought going, and that's all. That's good news. That is terrific news. Let's live in the positive there. Also, commotio cordis. Commotio cordis is trending today. Commotio cordis is what the doctors have diagnosed as being Damar Hamlin's situation. It was almost immediately. It was diagnosed this by doctors on social media and then doctors on ESPN. And commotio cordis is a really interesting and rare, yet not uncommon. See, it's like, does it happen a lot? No. When it happens, can doctors recognize that it's happening? Yes, absolutely, because they've seen examples. It doesn't happen every day in every sporting event, but it is an injury, a heart injury that has occurred to athletes in specific force. It is commotio cordis is when, well, here I'll just read it to you just because there's a whole bunch of people. Commotio cordis is a rare lethal disruption of heart rhythm that occurs as a result of a blow to the area directly over the heart. And here's the important thing. It occurs as a result of a blow to the area directly over the heart at a critical time during the cycle of a heartbeat. So it's just like an eyelash of a moment where if the hit had been 1/1,000,000th of a second later or earlier, this would not have occurred. But because his heart was in a specific rhythm cycle at the moment of impact, it went into what do they call it? Anyway? This leads to a disrupting normal heart. This leads to disrupting normal heart electrical activity, followed instantly by ventricle fibrillation, complete disorganization of the heart's pumping function, and eventually cardiac arrest. So those stages there, that's why we see him bounce up. That's why we see him bounce up for a few minutes because, it's going through all the things. While he's there, his heart's going, wait, what's happening? What's happening? And then a second later, it goes, just stop, pull the plug, and then he drops. Chris Pronger, the NHL, took a puck right to the chest. He's been all over the media talking about commotio cordis, this thing. Chris Pronger, the Chuck Hughes for the Detroit Lion. Was he a Detroit Lion? I don't know. It was a Bears-Lions game. Chuck Hughes went out for a pass, made the catch, took a big hit, went back to the huddle, played the next play, and then on his way walking back to the huddle after the second play, dropped dead of commotio cordis. It took, in his case, it just took him 35, 40 seconds, maybe a minute before it happened. But it is fairly common. It is a freak accident. It happens a lot. And the place it happens the most is in youth sports, specifically youth baseball, hockey, and lacrosse. Those are where they see most. In professional sports, they don't see it quite as much. But with youth sports, I guess that would be it because there's a little league game being played in every, right? So, there's just more youths playing organized sports than there are pros. Enoch, Utah is trending. This is what's going on with Utah, right? I don't know where Enoch is in relation to Moscow, but family of 8 has been found shot dead in Utah. I'm telling you, if they didn't have this Brian Koberger in custody, people would be going, oh, there's a mass murderer doing mass shootings in Utah. Something like that, I'm sure. A family of 8 found shot to death Wednesday inside their home in Enoch City, Utah, died by murder-suicide, this according to a news release from the city manager. Evidence suggests that the suspect took his own life after killing 7 others in the home. Dodson identified the suspect as Michael Haight, the appropriately named Haight, 42 years old. The two adult victims were his wife, Tasha Haight, 40, and Tasha's mother, Gail Earl, 78, according to the release. All right, so he's a dude. He's got, what has he got? Six. He's got 5 kids. He's a dude. He's got 5 kids. He's living with his wife and his mom, his mother-in-law. The other victims were the couple's 5 children, 17, 12, and 7-year-old girls, and 7 and 4-year-old boys. Jesus, you know what? Ugh. We join with all who are deeply saddened by this tragic event and want to express our condolences. Okay, so that's why you're seeing the city of Enoch, Utah trending today, if you're wondering. Non-competes. Hey, I mentioned non-competes earlier. What was I? In what way did I reference non-competes? What was I talking about? Was I talking about Benedict Arnold? Was it when Benedict Arnold walked away from the Revolutionary Army, the American Revolution, and joined the Brits? He didn't have a non-compete. I don't know. Anyway, non-competes, which are absolute garbage, and I cannot understand how in a modern, civilized environment where we encourage people to go out there and earn and go after their dreams and work hard, how non-competes can be a thing. Non-competes in the business that I came from, which is radio, non-competes are the worst. Non-competes mean that if you work for a radio station one day and then suddenly the next day you don't work for that radio station, you can't get a job at another radio station in that market for a predetermined period of time, which is called a non-compete. You're not allowed to go and compete, which is absolute bullshit and is certainly not in the best interest of the worker, but does allow the employer to enact a little revenge if they feel so inclined. It's just absolutely an awful, terrible thing that should never exist. And now I understand non-competes, which were almost always the exclusive domain of the entertainment industry. Non-competes are now, people who work at Walmart have to sign a non-compete that in their small town they won't go work at Target. Are you freaking kidding me? This is insane. Why? What is a cashier at Walmart going to steal intellectually from that Walmart and then deliver to Target that Target doesn't already know about? Old Madge, who's working the counter, she ain't bringing any kind of top-level intellectual secrets. Washington, D.C., the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, which enforces antitrust law, proposed a rule that would ban companies from requiring workers to sign non-compete provisions, as well as some training repayment agreements which companies use to keep workers from leaving for better jobs, the agency said on Thursday. Your government at work. This is good. This may not be border security. This may not be economic reform. This may not be raising or lowering of the debt ceiling, but this is something our government did or is doing. Oh God, time out. Because this isn't going to happen because they're going to put this press release out. They're going to get people like me going, our government is doing something. And then it will slowly just go away and we'll never hear of it again. But in principle, non-competes and the outlawing of companies using non-competes, that is a good thing. And hopefully it'll happen. Although it probably won't. Hey, speaking of things that we hope will happen that probably won't, can I tell you why bionic penis is trending today? Because bionic penis is most certainly trending today. Apparently doctors have got themselves, look, here's what they're going to do. They built a plastic penis. All right, I'll read it to you. All right, because I don't want to get this important story wrong. Let's see. Experiments on pigs. And they're not talking about men. Experiments on pigs have found a plastic patch can be used to strengthen tissue that contracts to keep the penis hard when it's erect. And then they show us what it looks like. I'm not interested in the artificial tunica that's a foreign word. ATA. It's just, we'll call it the ATA. The ATA could help men keep it up. It is also, if it also works on humans, which science believes it does. It could repair injuries caused by sex, car, and major machine accidents, gunshot wounds, or even burns. The greatest advantage is that it achieves tissue-like functions by microstructure of natural tissues. About half of men between the ages of 40 and 70 experience some form of erectile dysfunction. Yeah, you do. You don't admit it, but you do. Scar tissue forms in the tunica albuginea. I don't even know what that is. I don't care. Anyway, they're building a bionic penis. If you want one, I don't know. I'm sure Amazon will be able to fulfill your request. Jake Paul is trending. Jake Paul is trending because you know what? Jake Paul is trending. If you want to know what he's trending for, just go look him up. I'm just so tired of Jake Paul's going to fight MMA. That's why Jake Paul is trending. Then go look it up. Go just look at it. It's just stupid. Just Jake Paul. Although I do request, I do sort of respect Jake Paul in that he looked out at the landscape and went, how do I get stupid people to throw money at me? And he was able to come up with a plan, and it worked. And the stupid people love Jake Paul. And he is a multi-millionaire because of stupid people. Psychonauts. Okay, this is a story that I like. Psychonauts are trending. You know what psychonauts are? Psychonauts. They're like astronauts, except they take psychedelic drugs. And there are studies going on now in places that have either decriminalized or outright legalized mushrooms and DMT and all of these kinds of things. So there's a company in Colorado who is doing research, and they have, you know, the way NASA unveiled like the Mercury crew or whatever. So this place, they've unveiled their psychonauts. These are professionals who will spend the next few years of their life in a study, which will allow them to go on extended, deep trips where doctors are going to, not doctors, but just observers, some doctors, psychotherapists, and other hallucinogenic enthusiasts, whatever, professionals, I don't know. They will sort of, I'll tell you, let me just read you some of what this psychonaut experiment is all about. Because I have to tell you, sounds pretty good to me. It sounds pretty good to me. Here's what it says. The method, Thornbahn was one of the psychonauts. The method might give Thornbahn and other psychonauts enough time to bring back detailed trip reports of their experience. An intriguing aspect of DMT experiences is a degree of similarity. The landscapes and beings can be recognizable to different users. A mechanical elf is a popular recurring visitor in multiple DMT trip experiences. Who's the elf? Who's this elf? See, we got to figure this shit out. We don't know what, look, anybody who has ever tripped, and I've tripped a couple of times, right? Didn't make it the core of my existence like some people did, but, you know, I tried it. I experimented. Anybody who has ever tripped knows that something's going on, that we are tapping into some other part of our brain that is making us see things differently, process information. Anyway, we all know that, right? So what this place is doing is they're kind of taking it, like if you or I or anybody else, if we've ever tripped, we probably did too much. It probably, you know, wasn't the optimal. But if you can get professionals, right, and they know exactly how much to give you intravenously, by the way, these people are going to be, they're going to extend these like peak trips for 3 hours for these people. And the hope is that they can bring back detailed information about where they've been. We're talking about another dimension, man. We're tapping into parts of the brain that we know we ain't using. We know there's a reason for it. We just haven't been able to get there. So that's what this particular project aims to do. And it's fascinating. The landscapes and beings can be recognizable to different users. A mechanical elf is a popular recurring visitor. And for Thornbahn, again, Thornbahn is one of the new psychonauts, the trips seem more real than real, a quote heard often in DMT experimenting circles. Advocates of extended state programs, and that's what this is called, extended. Basically, they're going to let them go live in a trip. Like, instead of just tripping and then it wears off, they're going to let them go live in a trip for as long as it takes for them to figure out what the hell is going on here. And that's called extended state program testing. Extended state programs want to know whether these experiences illuminate a new corner of the mind. even another dimension, or whether users are just getting really high, that's important work. Now, it might turn out they're just getting really balls high, but there might be something else in there. There might be. We don't know what we don't know about our own brains and what we don't. We are cavemen. 1,000 years from now, do you think humanity is still going to think, it's what did he have to be depressed about? Like 1,000 years ago, nobody's ever going to say that. What did he? He was famous. Why did he kill himself? Like, because we're going to have a better understanding of all of this stuff. Extended state DMT programs offered by Medicinal Mindfulness of Colorado, founded in 2012 in Boulder by two psychotherapists. Hold on, this is the organization. Hold on. By two psychotherapists, is a psychedelic therapy clinic and provides cannabis and ketamine-assisted sessions, claiming to have helped treat trauma, depression, and feelings of meaninglessness. Its website emphasizes that the clinic fully complies with all local and Colorado state cannabis laws and federal regulations. DMTX is a new offshoot of this company, founded in 2016 with a long-term goal to develop and implement FDA-approved clinical research into DMT. According to its website, the website reads, while we'll continue to follow stringent safety protocols, working outside some of the cultural constraints of the FDA allows us to explore a model that is congruent with the passionate interests of the psychedelic community, namely to explore the important question, what in the world is really going on here? Ooh, I would totally do this. I would, well, I mean, I can't, but I would. Like, if I was like a rich guy, I'd be like, sign me up. I'll go tripping for 7 years. Let's see where I go. Let's see what I bring back. Goes on to say here in the story, much of the theory behind DMTX, that's extended trips, much of the theory behind DMTX comes from a 2016 paper in Frontiers in Physiology by Andrew Gallimore and Rick Strassman, in which the authors laid out a method to maintain a stable brain concentration of DMT using intravenous fusion. The phenomenological content of dream states and hallucinations in psychotic disorders have been studied extensively, the authors wrote, whilst the endogenous human hallucination of DMT reliably and reproductively generates one of the most unusual states of consciousness available, it has never been studied. So we studied dream states, we studied, the psychedelic. They've studied like what psychedelics do, but they've never studied where DMT takes you. And these people are, let's go for a ride. What do you say? All right. That's about it. That's about all we got. Let me jump into Twitter. Let's see if there's anything new that is trending as far as, a lot is probably trending, man. I'm telling you, I really want to just jump out of here and I want to read these Brian Koberger stuff. Let's see, anything. Koberger, Idaho murder suspect Brian Koberger's twin traffic stops in Indiana were orchestrated by the FBI, who had him under surveillance. Okay, we already knew that. All right, let's see. Let's see what's happening here. Anything new that we can just jump on? Nope. Who's John James? John James is the guy from Michigan, the GOP rep from Michigan who made an ethnic slur. He said he welched on a bet. I am just going to be so offended for all the Welshmen out there. I'm Irish. They're just right across the sea. They're just right across it's the Irish Sea, I guess. It's little, though. It's like, like 5 miles across, something like that. Probably more than that, but you know what I'm saying? It's close. Sean Hannity is trending. I don't want to touch that. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So there's nothing new trending really that we haven't already covered. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else that's new that's popping up. House paralyzed as Speaker stalemate drags on. Yeah. All right. There's nothing new. I mean, all that's happening is the stuff that's happening. And that's I want to go follow the situation that's going on there in the Congress. I don't know. They vote. Are they still voting? They take a break. They can only be there for what, like 40 minutes at a time before they go, do declare. I'm getting the vapors. I don't understand what these people all day long yesterday. They're going to be there all night. This is going to go on all night. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. They took a lunch break and came back and said, let's quit for the day. And then they all voted and went, yay, let's quit and then they quit for the day. These people just didn't want to be there. They're not going to be there. They know that this is also performative and it's not going to change. And apparently there are 20 members of the House GOP who are completely dug in and they aren't going to they're not going to compromise. So whatever. I don't know what's happening. I don't care. I'm going to go read some Brian Koberger dirt. I'm going to go find out exactly. I'm going to piece together his motive. Listen to us tonight. Myself and James Parker, Pugs and Parker, proudly present Pillow Talk, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time every Monday through Thursday right here. We're going to talk all about the Koberger thing. I got to go learn some stuff. I also got to buy coffee. I hate that I have to go to the store just to buy coffee. Because you can't go to the convenience store and buy coffee. You're going to buy like $12 stupid coffee from the 7-Eleven. You got to buy the coffee. All right, so I'm going to go to a store just to buy coffee. Nah, you know what? I also need melatonin gummies. All right, so coffee and melatonin gummies. All right, that's two things. But first, before I do that, I'm going to sink my teeth into some Brian Koberger. Is it Koberger or Koberg? I don't know. Doesn't matter. All right, guys, we'll see you tonight at 9 o'clock. Is that it? Yep, that's it. See you tonight at 9 o'clock. Bye, everybody. And then back again tomorrow for the Friday edition of High Noon. Bye, everybody. Love you. See you. I don't need no 401. I don't have the green. Down the road I'll travel, far from the comfort nest.